So good news for those who are fully vaccinated and looking to travel to the US. The states will now allow international air travelers from several countries, including South Africa, to visit the country. This follows over 1.5 years of travel restrictions that combat the spread of COVID-19. Jagruti Dave, our US correspondent, joins us now from Washington, D.C. to give us more insights on those developments. Thank you so much for your time this evening, or in your time the day. So in your engagements with various stakeholders, what informed the decision to change the status quo?
Yeah, I think officials are very much saying that they were driven by the science to make this decision. But I think what a lot of observers are noticing is the timing of the decision coming as it does hot on the heels of a diplomatic row between the United States and a key European ally, France, over this new AUKUS pact that the United States, Australia and the UK have recently signed up to, which saw France lose out on a multi-billion-dollar submarine contract with Australia. There are some suggestions that this may have been dropped to sweeten the deal in a bid for the US to try to repair some of those fractured relations. Another indication that interpretation could hold some weight is suggestions that Boris Johnson himself, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, was taken by surprise with this announcement. He had told reporters earlier that not to hold your breath about the easing of travel restrictions. So there are suggestions that this is really part of the diplomatic tensions that have been ongoing between the Biden administration, not only France, as Europe-wide, following the US's chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, which saw a lot of disquiet among European leaders about whether they could really regard America as a reliable global partner. But as I say, the United States maintaining that this decision was driven by the science, and also urgency from the business community, amongst others, as well as families who'd been separated by the travel ban, on the need to move it along to try to bring back tourism and reunite families.
Right. Now, Jagruti, have there been any indications on travellers who have not been vaccinated? Is there some indication of what will be happening in terms of their travel regulations, rather, in terms of whether they'll need to be in isolation for a period? Are there conversations happening around those at the moment?
Yeah, I think there are. So, let me just walk through some of the things that we do know, which is that vaccinated travellers will need to show a proof of vaccination, and they will have to have a negative COVID-19 test 3 days before arrival in the United States. That proof of vaccination is before they board a flight to the United States. We do know that there are going to be stricter rules for unvaccinated Americans abroad who want to return home from overseas. They will have to provide a negative test a day before travelling to the US and show proof that they bought a COVID test on return to the United States. But there are still a lot of things that we don't know. For example, it's still unclear what the definition of fully vaccinated might be, with all this talk of booster shots going on at the moment as well. So Jeff Zients, the White House's pandemic coordinator, has said that that is something that the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control here in the United States, will determine at a later date. We're also not sure about which vaccines are going to be permitted for proof of vaccination. Of course, Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson are approved here in the United States, but there's questions over AstraZeneca, there's questions over the Chinese-made vaccines, for example. Those are still yet to be determined. That is going to be an interagency process, says Jen Psaki, the White House's press secretary, clearly kicking that conversation a bit further on down the line.
Very briefly, we've run out of time, but I have to ask you, we've had international airlines appeal to the Biden administration about international travel and how badly it was affected by the restrictions. Just paint a brief picture for us about that and really just how this will improve the situation for the airlines in the US and which travel abroad.
Yeah, I think, we've been hearing stories about airlines being severely hit by the travel restrictions and the drop in international travel, which has hit revenues, which has caused a lot of airlines to ground their planes, for example, because these flights weren't running because of the travel ban. So it's clearly hit airlines, and there was real worries about airlines potentially having to go into, losing a lot of money, and there was real pleas from airlines for requests for emergency funding as part of the United States' emergency coronavirus relief. So this was something that a lot of businesses, not just the airline industry, has been facing as a result of coronavirus travel bans. And so I think what you're going to see is, of course, this is going to be a welcome move to airline industries, but what's going to be a challenge for them is that one of the other measures is that it's going to be airlines who are going to be asked to step up their new and put in place new contact tracing systems to monitor the anticipated large number of international travelers who are going to be coming into the United States as a result of the lifting of these bans. And there's questions as to whether that is really something that should be left to private companies like airlines, or whether that should be something that's done centrally by the federal government. So, these are just some of the issues facing airlines, but clearly this is going to be a boost for the tourism industry and the airline industry if, as expected, air travel picks up once these bans are lifted.